I feel like you're so nervous,
Me?
Julian.
What? No.
That was fine. That was
What?
super defensive.
Not me. I know.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. What are you talking about? I'm fine.
Are natural formulations inherently better in the skincare industry?
No,
Okay.
no, absolutely not.
A lot of skincare brands will kind of indicate that with their marketing, or at least imply it, and most formulation chemists or experts in the field tend to disagree.
Yeah.
I have some very special guests here today to talk about this. They're Julian and Ava. Introduce yourselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Julian Sass. I'm a cosmetic chemist. I have been in the industry for quite a few years. I do cosmetic chemistry, I formulate, I do R&D, I do clinical testing. That's my specialty on the brand side. And I also make a lot of content on social media doing formulation, but I also talk a lot about sunscreen. That's kind of my claim to fame, testing out sunscreens and see what is best for people with deeper skin tones. I have made a sunscreen database that has over 500 products on it, just logging all different kind of types of things with the formula, like how does it spread, how does it feel, what's the finish like, how's the white cast like, to help you find a better sunscreen for your skin, to help you save time and money. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here today.
My name is Ava Perkins. I am also a cosmetic chemist. I am currently getting my PhD at the University of Cincinnati studying biomembrane sciences, but before that I got a bachelor's degree in cosmetic science and formulation design from the University of Toledo, which is one of the only undergrad cosmetic science programs in the United States.
Snaps to Toledo.
So cool. Graduated as valedictorian there. Very cool.
Okay, I did not know.
I did not know that. You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah.
Get out of here. All right, I'm gonna go.
I learned how to formulate over 50 cosmetic and personal care products, and also a little bit of pharmaceuticals too. I now teach 3 different labs within my PhD program. I also do a little bit of consulting on the side. I'm really involved within the Society of Cosmetic Chemists. I'm very busy, but I'm also super duper passionate, especially about the education side of the industry. And it's one of my main goals on my social media platforms to bridge the gap between industry knowledge and consumer understanding, just because I found it increasingly frustrated to see our industry go in a negative direction, despite the science not really proving that way, that direction.
100%.
And so I love to debunk skincare myths or whatever by literally showing you. So I love to do a lot of lab demos and show you firsthand why something might be wrong.
Yeah, and I've got my PhD, and I can't wait for you to have your PhD. Very excited for you.
Yes, Dr. Ava Perky.
So while natural doesn't always mean something's better for your skin, it also can pose some formulation challenges. So we're going to talk about some of those today, and to demonstrate that to you, we're going to make a natural mineral-based sunscreen, and then we're also going to make one with whatever ingredients we want. We're going to show you guys how the differences can be in terms of production, how things are made, the cost of ingredients, and some of the differences there. Some of the challenges that formulators have to face when ingredients are mistakenly fear-mongered. So that is kind of the whole point here. I understand that some people prefer something to sound and feel a little more natural, but it's the association with the implication for me that it's more safe because it's more natural. You can call something natural, but please don't try to imply that that's better for the environment or for humans, because that is not the case always. That is very rarely the case. In fact, for me, fragrance versus essential oil, I'd even take fragrance over essential oil.
Oh, 100%.
And when you're looking at clean ingredients and et cetera, stuff like that, you are making the formula more expensive solely for ingredients that are not increasing the benefits to skin. That's just providing those beneficial ingredients in a stable emulsion that doesn't fall apart, that doesn't feel like crap. You're spending more money on the stuff that's not benefiting your skin.
Yeah.
Not the actives, but the base, and I just don't like that.
Yeah, and when you're working with more natural stuff, you have to then add other things, make sure that nothing else worse happens. So it's you're adding more things to this game of whack-a-mole in formulation, which already happens. It's hard enough.
It's hard enough
when you're making a product, but now it's okay, I have these actives, but now it has to be natural, so I gotta have this, but I can't have this in there with that, so I gotta have that. It just makes everything so much more difficult and complicated when it doesn't need to be at all.
I hate formulating sunscreen. That's why I called in the big dogs to come do it for me. I'm gonna be the supervisor today. Y'all ready to get started?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Welcome to the messy lab.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna start now with the water phase. Julian's making a natural one. Ava is making one that I'm gonna actually like.
A chemical sunscreen.
Yeah, Ava's making a chemical sunscreen, so I will actually use that one. Julian, you said you're gonna make yours a reverse emulsion. Yours is water and oil. Good call. I approve.
Thanks.
So go ahead and if y'all want to weigh out your water phases, we'll get started.
All right.
Even though she's doing a standard emulsion and he is doing a reverse, we are going to start with the water phase for both.
Yeah.
Why don't y'all explain what emulsions are?
Ooh.
Yeah.
So fun. An emulsion is essentially where you have your water phase and you have your oil phase and you add on an emulsifier, which basically is what holds the oil and water together so they don't split up and have two different layers in the product.
So basically you're combining two things that don't dissolve in each other by nature and bringing them together. But like what's interesting about emulsions, and maybe that's something that you might have experience using products, is that even though we're bringing them together, they're inherently still unstable.
Everything's
because
gonna separate. Yeah.
Everything
It will separate eventually.
Separate
Yeah.
eventually because you're combining oil and water that, again, just inherently don't mix. But we're kind of able to do some chemist magic to make that temporarily a thing.
Yeah.
But after a few years, it's
It's gonna split.
gonna split.
The emulsifier essentially, it has like if you're doing oil and water, the emulsifier is going to have a head that is attracted to the oil phase and a part of it that is attracted to the water phase, and it's kind of just like bringing them to like
them
me.
together.
Like if I were to take them and go, but like they could let's dance. But they could still fight and separate at some point, and I'm stepping out of it. So what we're talking about with a reverse emulsion is a standard emulsion typically has all of your oils and waxes dispersed throughout the external water phase. That's what Ava's going to be making. That's pretty standard with most like moisturizers and stuff.
Yeah.
Julian, on the other hand, is going to flip it around and he's going to trap the water phase inside of an external oil phase. Now, because oil and water don't mix, that kind of naturally gives some kind of waterproof quality to the formula anyway. So his is going to be a little more naturally water resistant by itself. Ava, though, because she's not making a natural sunscreen, has a little bit more of like the
wiggle room.
polymers and film
Yeah.
formers to work with to kind of get that water resistance there too. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how these turn out.
I'm excited.
I'm excited.
The type of emulsion that you're making is just also inherently harder to make
Yes.
too.
Yes, it's harder to make and it's very, very annoying to do.
It's super annoying
And you have to
do.
typically use, like we have a homogenizer. It's the difference between like mixing something with a spoon if we're going to talk about cooking versus like having to use an immersion blender. And not just with reverse emulsions though, but with a lot of the natural emulsifiers, it turns out they require a lot more energy
more
to go
energy.
into a system and form something stable. So you typically do have to incorporate the heavier hitting equipment when
Yeah.
you're working with naturals, which irritates me because I'm lazy. But we're gonna make Julian do that today.
Yeah.
He came all the way from Montreal just to do the annoying stuff for
Yes,
me.
I
Yes.
did.
Thank you, honey.
You're welcome.
So let's get started. Weighing out the water phase.
All right.
Sounds good.
Great.
Something you might notice between our formulas is that he's going to use a lot less water than me, and that's because of the type of emulsion that he's making. Those water droplets are going to be suspended in an oil phase, and so you kind of have to use less water or else the emulsion will break.
You have that like limit, that point of no return with the
Yes.
water.
With the water, oh my God.
And it's harder to adjust after. So by nature, that's going to make your formula more expensive because water is always going to be the cheapest ingredient you can add.
Exactly.
Also, I would assume most manufacturers might incorporate some kind of extra charge just because of the tricky
processing.
nature,
Yeah.
the likelihood of a failed batch that you can't recover.
Thank you.
Whereas most standard emulsions, there are ways to recover a failed batch.
Yeah.
Whereas with the reverse, you're kind of like stuck.
Stuck with
With
that.
most of the emulsifiers. That's why with sake bomb we use SPI 7092.
With reverse emulsions, you can't adjust pH after. It's harder to add ingredients after because all the water is suspended in the oil. And because the oil is the outer phase, the external phase, that's where you get that heaviness and that greasiness and that kind of inherent water resistance.
Yeah.
So a lot of sunscreens are made to be reverse emulsions, so you do have that inherent spreadability and waterproofing, and a lot of UV filters are also kind of better behaved in the oil phase for sure, but you also get that greasy feeling as well, which is why a lot of sunscreens in the US tend to be not as elegant and nice because they are those reverse emulsions which feel really heavy on the skin.
Yeah, and y'all will see how much of these UV filters we'll use today. It's a lot more than you think.
Yeah.
It's a good chunk of the formula.
It doesn't leave you with much room to add ingredients to enhance the
Yeah.
texture. And then when you're having to formulate under these natural guidelines, because certain ingredients that are totally safe and effective have been fear-mongered, you have to spend a lot of the formula basically just trying to fix
Make
the
it-
aesthetics of the other ingredients.
To make it tolerable.
Yes, to make it
At
tolerable.
least.
Because at the end of the day, you can make a sunscreen all day long in the beaker, but if no one's actually using it because it is really
terrible.
annoying to apply, I mean, you're not getting sun protection from a sunscreen that you don't use. So.
Period.
Exactly.
Now they're going to add some humectants that are going to help increase hydration.
Great.
He's using glycerin because it's all natural.
Yes.
Ava's going to use glycerin. Glycerin is one of my favorite humectants.
Yes.
It's very hydrating.
It's the best. It's so cheap too.
It's
so
dirt
cheap.
cheap.
So cheap.
Yeah.
So hydrating, but it can be sticky.
Yes, it can be
can.
tacky at like a really high percent. Like for me, it's like above like 10 or like
yeah.
even
Even
5.
five is sometimes a little
5 can
tricky.
be a little bit. It's just like, ooh,
You're doing
okay.
5%.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm doing 5%.
Ava's she's gonna do like 2% glycerin and also some propylene glycol. Another humectant. It's great for water retention and skin, but it also is a little thinner. I feel like in my experience with it, it tends to contribute a lot less to that sticky feel.
Oh, yeah.
Do y'all agree?
Oh,
Yes,
100%.
100%.
Yeah. That one gets fearmongered because people say it's the main ingredient in antifreeze.
I know. Which, like, can we talk about that real
Water's the
quick?
ingredient in toilet bowl cleaner, and I don't say that that's like...
It's crazy that people don't realize that these ingredients are also used in other industries.
applications.
Like
Yes.
when we talk to suppliers, the cosmetic industry is not the only industry that they sell to.
Right.
There's
Yeah,
a lot that
100%.
sell to food or to industrial. Like it's not just cosmetics.
Even
Yeah,
like
so-
what Chrissy was saying earlier with the, like dimethicone and simethicone, that's gas X. That reduces bubbles in your stomach.
Yeah.
So when people fearmonger dimethicone, I'm like, oh, well.
Exactly. Another example is mineral oil, which is like
Oh,
great
yeah.
for the skin, but it's also a laxative.
Yes.
So we're using these things in all these different applications.
And what is Miralax is just PEG, like
Yeah,
polyethylene
pretty much.
glycol,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Right, or like PEG 800 or something.
Yeah, and these are like FDA monographed like
Yeah,
ingredients.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
this isn't like we're just
telling
throwing
you
it
can
in
eat
there.
it.
Yeah.
Even if your skin did absorb it like a sponge, it would be fine.
Oh my
For most
gosh.
ingredients, not all of them though. We're not saying that everything is totally fine and dandy to put on skin or to eat. Now, what are we going to use to preserve these formulas, guys? Because we do not want it growing microbes.
I'm going to be using paraben DU, which is a mix of a few parabens. Parabens are really awesome. They're really safe and effective.
Talk about like when everyone switched from parabens to phenoxyethanol. I was working with a couple brands. This was like 6 or 7 years ago, and they had a couple of serums, and they wanted us to switch the preservative system from parabens to like phenoxycap glycol, right? And so then, of course, that gets cloudy because the phenoxyethanol cap glycol is not water soluble like the parabens were. So then I added polysorbate 20 to make it go clear. That's a solubilizer surfactant type of ingredient, but that is an ethoxylated compound. And so then after that, they're like, oh, no, but we don't want polysorbate 20, but we want it to stay clear. And I'm like,
Pick one.
babes, you're gonna have to pick. So now, Julian, you're gonna use hydroxyacetophenone, right?
Yes.
I was gonna let him choose natural preservative, but I don't stock a lot of them in my lab. Like GeoGuard Ultra, I will not use. It ruins the emulsion every single time.
Yeah.
It's like gluconolactone and whatever else. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't like most natural preservatives. There's like, oh my god, we could have done like lactobacillus.
Oh, I wish we had some vegetable filtrate. Oh man.
Just to show that it was gonna grow. It would be like growing mold. before
Growing
it
mold
died.
in like a couple days.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to
Yes.
use something living. But anyway, so what I do stock in the lab is hydroxyacetophenone at 0.5% combined with like hexanediol. You're gonna get very good preservation. But as you guys will see, parabens go right into the formula. Ava's
Easy.
parabens are already dispersed.
Yeah.
His are gonna require heat. So that's just kind of like one example of how sometimes these
Got to take an extra
other
step.
ingredients. So yeah, it's just kind of like contributing more.
More
to-
drama.
Yes.
What are you doing?
I'm cutting the pipette. So if you're using things that are pretty viscous, instead of, just sucking it up and just waiting for it to go, you can cut the pipette and it just sucks up more viscous liquids better.
I'm gonna show you my other favorite trick with pipettes.
Ooh, do you go the top?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I cut the bottom.
And then
Some
for
people cut the top.
For Julian, he's doing a powder. So if you cut the pipette like that, then you have a little scoop.
So, oh my god. Okay, I love this. I love this. This is great.
I know, there's so many tricks. But like these aren't things until like you go on the job. You know what I mean?
100%. 100%. Like,
I was doing an internship and somebody showed it to me because I was just like, oh my god, it's taking forever to like get this glycerin in there. She's like, just cut the pipette. I was like
What?
the simplest
I know,
things.
I'm
I'm like,
actually-
my
I've
whole
never-
life has
I've
changed.
literally
Thank
never
you.
done this. It's like the things that make so much sense, but that my brain just doesn't
Yeah.
typically think of. She can also add disodium EDTA, that's a chelating agent that can further preserve the formula. Of the natural chelating agents, I actually used the last of my sample last week, so I have
Sad.
phytic acid.
Okay.
But you're just not gonna have a chelating agent.
No,
Sorry.
I'm just hanging out. This is my entire water phase. I'm just chilling
Just chilling.
while they have fun.
This is our water phase. Pretty easy, right?
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgina.
Gorge.
So now for the oil phase in both of these. Ava's gonna have a lot of fun with silicones, they're my favorite class of ingredients, but Julian, so
I
sorry.
get natural oils and esters. Yay! Woo.
And honestly too, because you're doing a mineral sunscreen with natural guidelines is tough. Because a lot of silicones are a really good dispersing agent for zinc oxide to make it
Yes.
feel better, make it less likely to leave a white cast, make it feel better in the formula.
Yeah.
So what zinc dispersion are you using?
So I'm gonna be using the Zen-Clear XP65 Cocoa. So this is zinc oxide dispersed in cocoa coprolate caprate. So it's got a really nice skin feel for sure, but obviously it's gonna leave a white cast. But obviously using something like a silicone to disperse this in would be ideal because it feels so nice. But
does, it feels so much
instead,
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with like natural oils on its
No.
own, but in its application in a sunscreen, it's not ideal.
Yeah,
like Julian was saying.
I also like prefer silicones to natural oils a lot of the time, just from like a formulation standpoint,
perspective.
because it's less likely to go rancid. You don't have those double bonds that could oxidize.
Yeah, exactly. Like the moment that you start using natural oils in your formula, it's like, okay, I need to add an antioxidant. There's a lot of other considerations that you have to have versus if you're using like esters or silicones. It's just like, okay, throw it in, boom, 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 done, easy.
And I feel like a lot of suppliers like to say like, oh, this is a one-to-one replacement, blah blah. Structurally, silicones and natural oils are just so different.
They're so different. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're gonna have
So
that-
different.
yeah.
One of the biggest things in the industry right now is natural silicone alternatives.
Yeah. We have this one right here in the lab. It's called Vita Silky Fluid. Neither of them have worked with that. I don't think I have
No.
before.
I've not.
It does give a nice like dry touch.
Dry touch feel for sure.
that.
And I think the ink on this is tetradecane, dodecane, and there's one more emollient, and I can't remember exactly what. But okay, it's not silicones, but it feels nice.
Really nice,
You can
really
use that
nice
if
skin
you wanted
feel.
to, but
Yeah.
you don't have to.
Yeah.
But it's also a lot more expensive than some of the silicones that it's replacing. So it's like you're contributing to the cost of the formula with ingredients that aren't going to actually benefit your skin. It's just going to benefit the aesthetics of the formula, which
Yeah.
it's like that's another thing that I hate about like switching from a natural to a synthetic.
Yeah,
or
a lot of
synthetic.
natural ingredients, natural alternatives for things are inherently more expensive, especially if you're getting something that's coming from something that's wild harvested.
Yeah.
The amount of money that has to go into the farming and the processing just drives your formula cost up versus
Yeah.
using a synthetic alternative or just any kind of synthetic ingredient. It's just like, oh wow, it's easy, we can make it in the lab,
Yeah.
the cost is so much lower.
Absolutely. And not to
Impact
mention
of the
too,
formula.
like the quality of your material varies based on the weather.
The crop.
Yeah, the crop
The
itself.
soil quality at
Where-
the time that the sunflower was growing.
Yeah. So
So-
that's like when you make something synthetically, you kind of know what you're in for every time.
When an ingredient gets fearmongered and people are like, oh my God, dimethicone is so bad for the environment or for skin. So then it drives brands to ask their chemists to use alternatives. And then it's like, okay, automatically off the bat, the cost is going up.
Yep.
Now this might cause some separation in the batch, and now we have to rework stability and maybe add different emulsifiers in, and now we have to choose a different preservative. Like those things are all driving up the cost. I would think what drives chemists crazy too is when you're saying like, okay, you can't use this cheap sunscreen because it has all these ingredients that are going to cause cancer, and you're like, okay, but the science doesn't actually show that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like classist almost to be like, you must
Yeah,
use
it really
these,
is. Like you have to use this expensive,
Yeah.
natural product, and it's like, okay, but now it's now cost prohibitive. No one's going to use it, so you just don't wear sunscreen at all, and then that's it.
Just another lab hack. Sometimes when you have things that are getting hot, you can have some water loss. So I keep some tin foil around.
Yes.
Yes. There you go.
Cooking in here, y'all. So in the oil phase, this is where we have our UV filters.
Yes.
So we're using completely different UV filters.
We're going to be using totally different filters.
You spoke about what you're using today.
Yes.
Your zinc oxide.
Yep, using zinc oxide. Zinc oxide is great because it is a broad spectrum filter on its own, so it protects well against both UVA and UVB rays. So I can make a great broad spectrum sunscreen with just this one filter. However, you're going to be using some chemical filters.
Yes. So chemical filters are good because they don't leave a white cast like a zinc oxide or a titanium dioxide does. But we're going to be using several of the chemical filters today because by itself, there's not a broad spectrum filter like zinc oxide. That's why
No.
zinc oxide's kind of goated like that.
Yeah.
Like, you can just throw it in and like, that's
and
it.
call it a day.
You're good.
But meanwhile, with the chemical filters, you
have to
gotta
use a lot.
mix and blend and
I
lots of
gotta
different
use,
things.
yeah, a bunch of different ones. The ones that I have here, I'm using octocrylene,
Okay.
homosalate, oxybenzone,
Oxybenzone.
octinoxate, and then we have avobenzone somewhere here. Avobenzone is our UVA girly, so this is going to protect us going into the bigger wavelengths of the UV spectrum.
Exactly.
These are going to be our UVB girlies. So we're going to combine combine a little bit of them. But you'll see as we're weighing them out, I'm going to be using kind of a lot of these. And so in an oil phase, like you typically don't want to use like a ton because it's going to get greasy.
Exactly.
But we're going to use a ton today because what do you want? Like greasy or protection?
Yeah,
Like-
would always rather have for protection, but counteracting that greasiness is one of the hardest things
Yes.
when it comes to sunscreen.
So I'm going to start with my octocrylene.
All right, I'm gonna start with my zinc oxide. I have no idea how this is gonna go. All right, so you can see that with this zinc oxide, it is completely white right here because zinc oxide is actually a white powder. And the fact that it's a white powder, like it is dispersed in oil, well, which is great, but you can't dissolve it in anything. So no matter what happens, you're always gonna have a white cast when you have zinc oxide in a formula.
And there are like other powders just in general that do dissolve in other things, but like this is just one of those things where it's like water or oil.
Nothing.
Like, we're stuck.
All right, so that's my UV filter. So now I'm gonna add one of my lipids. This is the Cetiol LC. So it's gonna give a really light feel. Because I'm doing a reverse emulsion, it's gonna be inherently more greasy. A way to counteract that is to use more lightweight lipids to really counteract that. And so ideally, I would use some silicones, which would be ideal, but I don't have silicones in this natural formula, so I'm gonna use a silicone alternative so I can still counteract that greasiness, but still be naturally compliant.
Yes, and I'm going in with homosalate now.
It's fine.
Just kidding, I lied. We're not using octinoxate today, but it is another UVB filter that is found in a lot of other chemical sunscreen. We will be using oxybenzone though, so I'll put that in right now. And you'll notice that some of these are liquids and some of these are powders. So this one obviously is a powder, and so is the avobenzone.
Yeah, and one of the more annoying things when you're working with chemical filters is keeping that avobenzone dissolved in the product, and that's one of the reasons, because there are other UV filters that help to keep the avobenzone dissolved and stay dissolved. Right, so now I'm gonna add one of our emulsifiers, one of those things that helps to keep the oil and the water really held together and combined. So I'm gonna be using 2 emulsifiers in this. I am using 2 because I really wanna make sure that this stays stable.
Yes.
So this is gonna be the first of the 2 that I'm using.
And it's interesting, like one thing that you can add to water and oil emulsions, like what Julian is making, is actually salt.
Salt.
To stabilize it.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of people don't realize that like we use salt actually pretty frequently in the cosmetic industry. Like,
yeah, like it's great for stabilizing water in our emulsions. It's also great if you're making shampoos that have the cleansing agents that respond well to salt. It helps to thicken your shampoos really, really well without using another more expensive rheology modifier.
It's so cheap.
Yeah, it's so cheap. I'm gonna add my secondary emulsifier to this just to help, again, really make sure that I have that stability with this, because water and oil emulsions are inherently less stable. So I wanna make sure this is as stable as possible.
I'm gonna go in with my avobenzone, and something for us to consider just regulation-wise is that we're actually not allowed to use avobenzone with zinc oxide. So like, in addition to some of our formulation constraints, just based off of what we were talking about earlier, there's also regulatory things that we need to take into consideration.
Yeah,
so we're very limited when it comes to making sunscreens.
Sunscreen,
it's
yeah.
like, ooh,
you have material considerations, filter combination considerations, regulatory stuff. Like, it really is like whack-a-mole. When it's like, oh, can I add this? Oh no, add this instead. Oh wait, but can I add this? Well, if you do, you got to add these other things too. And it's just a lot of work that we have to do.
Yes.
So we're both adding some like pellets now. So I'm adding some beeswax just to add some more viscosity and stability to the product. Then what are you adding?
I am adding Cream Maker CA20, which is an emulsifier. So we have cetyl alcohol and cedar earth 20 in here. So this is gonna make it all nice and uniform after we combine the 2 phases together.
Right.
We'll just dump it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not
We're going.
This is too much work.
We'll send.
So my oil phase is done. What do you have left
I have
for your oil
one
phase?
more emulsifier and an oil or 2, and then we're good to go.
All right.
Much. Now in here I'm putting Lotion Pro 165. It is another emulsifier. It has glycerol stearate and PEG 100 stearate. So again, ensuring that this is going to be as stable as possible. Just add that in real quick. All right, now I'm gonna go in with alkyl benzoate. This is just a lightweight emollient, gonna make it feel nice and
one of my favorites.
yeah, this is one of my favorites too. This is an OG. Oh gosh, if I don't spill it everywhere else. 2 more things. How do you pronounce this? Behenyl alcohol? Behenyl, that's right.
Yes. Behenyl alcohol.
Behenyl alcohol.
Nice fatty thickener.
Yes, long chain fatty alcohol. This is gonna provide some body, some
richness,
stability. Yes, absolutely. Almost done. Now we're gonna go in with the silicones. Yes! I know, I'm so sorry.
Lucky you.
Next we have dimethicone, and this is such like an OG silicone. There's a lot of different molecular weights that you can use, some that are volatile, some that are non-volatile. What does volatility mean?
So volatility just means that like when it gets hot or even when it touches your skin, or really like your skin heat is enough, then it starts to evaporate. And what that means is that you get like a really nice, silky, dry feeling with that product, and it can be really great for products that you just don't want to feel really greasy or that you just want to have just go on, do something and then just like evaporate off when it's done.
Yeah.
And so what you're using is dimethicone 350, and so that 350 tells you what the viscosity is.
Yes.
And you can get dimethicone that goes from like dimethicone like 1.5
It's
to
like water.
500,000, which is like a really thick gel.
Yes.
So now my oil phase has been done, and now
I have one more thing. I have
Oh my God.
I know. It's not that
You're
I'm
still
slacking.
going.
It's not that I'm slacking. It's that the difference in our ingredient list is a lot bigger. I have one more thing, and that is an elastomer gel. And this has a combination of different silicones brought together by polymers, and this is going to just give it that like nice cushion. As you can see, the texture is a lot different than the other silicone that we use. Like I can Dairy Queen it, and it's all good.
Elastomer
This is
gels.
such a nice texture.
Oh,
I
it's-
love elastomer gels. There's like one cosmetic ingredient that I would eat. It would be elastomer gels.
100%.
They are just like so yummy. I love the texture. And it's just amazing. Oh, perfect.
Oh, that was perfect.
That was
good.
perfect. Dang. Kind of a pro at this. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You've been ready.
Yes, I've been ready.
All right, do you want to cheers?
Cheers! Cheers to our oil phase.
Cheers to our oil phase. All righty. Pretty much.
So now that I've done absolutely none of the work on this, Ava and Julian are going to add their two phases together. So with Ava, she's going to add her oil phase directly into the water phase. You can just kind of dump it in.
Dump it in.
And then with Julian, on the other hand, this is a reverse emulsion.
Yay! So I have to very slowly add my water to my oil.
You can
Yes.
start to see it gel up. It's actually really fun to watch. It's not fun to do though. So
Yes.
this
It
is
takes
why I'm just like
forever.
thrilled I was the supervisor today.
I'm dreading this.
Yes. Here we go. No pressure. All right, Gorgina. We're just gonna turn up the speed a little bit, and as it starts to cool down, it'll start to get thicker. Plus, we're gonna post-add the gum.
Like we mentioned, this drama that we're doing right now is because he has to use a little bit stronger of equipment, so he's got to use the homogenizer to really form that emulsion, make sure it's stable, otherwise it's not going to actually combine into a stable product at all. All right, so now I noticed, Ava, you haven't added your thickener yet, have you?
Yeah, no, I haven't. It's pretty thin. Like if you were to put a pipette in there and just let the stuff in, it would drop out. That's probably not ideal.
So you want to make it more of like a cream. So I forgot to stock the thickener Ava was going to use. So you're going to use Sepimexin. If you haven't used that before, its trade name is Sepimexin. It's polyacrylate, or no, it's polyacrylate polymer 6.
Yep.
And it's really easy. You can add it at the end. You don't have to neutralize it.
And it tolerates
Oh
everything.
my god, like
Yes.
acids and stuff. And so, yeah.
This is in one of your products, right?
Yes, this is in Hair of the Dog.
Amazing.
Yes, and that was because it was able to like tolerate certain actives that were in there
Everything.
and also surfactants. So,
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also
so
going to
we'll-
tolerate chemical sunscreen filters pretty well too.
Perfect.
Very
So
good.
I need to add in the gum. Is there anything that you need to add in?
I just gotta add a little bit of antioxidant and then I'll be good.
Sweet.
Nice.
All right.
Which antioxidant are you using?
I'm using tocopherol, which is vitamin E.
Classic.
Yeah, so it's this lovely dark brown paste, and that's gonna help to keep any of the natural ingredients that are in here from going rancid. All right,
Yeah.
let's go.
Okay.
Let's do it. Add in our gum here. Make sure we crank up the speed. Man, she's right. This does go in so easily.
It's beautiful. I love that Sepimexin.
Love. Just gonna provide some additional viscosity here. Make it a little easier to spread.
So I'm just about got my tocopherol in. It's pretty sticky, so I'm trying to do it slowly.
All right, so this is obviously a lot thicker than what I had before. Before it was like water thin, and now this has some body after the gum. Interesting how much just 0.3% changes in a formula.
Those thickeners really just completely change
It really does.
that skin feel.
Yes.
100%.
All right, how are you doing?
I am doing well
Yeah?
because the tocopherol is oil soluble. I can just add this directly in. All right, this is looking pretty good. Oh yeah.
All right. Look at us.
All right.
Yes. We got
2 delicious formulas.
love. Oh my gosh. You can just like see the difference in whiteness a little bit.
Yeah, like
yours looks a little almost gray. I don't know how to, mine's
it's that
a little
zinc
more
oxide.
pure white.
Yeah, yours is more of a pure white, and this is just gonna have like a touch of the gray from the zinc oxide for sure.
Yeah. All right. Do you want to swatch these?
Yeah. Okay.
Ready? Okay.
Okay, so we need to take off gloves.
Gloves are off.
Yes. Let's
Yeah,
test out
you
your
ready?
sunscreen. Oh my god, I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh. It's my chemical sunscreen.
Okay.
Oh, she feels good.
Okay.
Yeah, how does it feel?
It feels really, really nice.
It feels nourishing.
Yeah.
Good job.
Thanks.
It's not like super heavy or greasy or anything.
No.
No, it's not too bad.
Sublime. It smells like sunscreen. I mean, obviously.
It does.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, that is like a beach smell.
That is a
Yeah.
beachy sunscreen
Yeah.
smell
And
without question.
Mind you, we didn't even put any fragrance in there. That just comes from the UV filters. So that's why like all sunscreens
You're supposed to say,
smell
yeah.
Kinda smell.
Unless you're getting like Korean sunscreens because
That's true.
Yeah. This smells like a
the smells
children's,
like a traditional.
like this smells like
sunscreen.
I am going outside.
Yeah.
I feel like this is probably too heavy for my face, but I can't wait to feel yours.
Oh,
Yes.
it'll be even heavier.
Let's
Who's
feel, let's feel.
excited? All right, so this is our natural mineral sunscreen. It's gonna be so great, so
My
lightweight.
least favorite, the project that made me break the most beakers out of frustration because I have a temper and throw it against the wall was an all natural SPF 50.
Should you be admitting that?
Yeah, it was an all natural SPF 50 all mineral filters, and it was a reverse emulsion with no silicones that I could use.
Oh, so this,
So that,
basically.
yeah.
basically.
All
I
right.
forgot you fixed it
All
for me.
Yeah. All right, let's rub it in, see how it goes.
Feel.
Oh my god.
Okay, it doesn't
The
feel.
rubber is not horrible.
It doesn't feel as bad as I
The
expected.
texture isn't bad.
No.
I mean, I don't have that much of a. It had a white cast, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I'm pretty fair, so like
Yeah.
you can't see this for me.
I applied
but-
substantially more, but like mine for sure.
And that's the difference. And this is why it's important for, in my opinion, skincare brands to, test it on
Test on lots of different skin
Because,
tones.
I would have, hey, all right, approved.
Yeah, this would be
no.
great for me, but
Yeah.
not for him.
It's a no for me, dog.
Do not
Obviously.
approve.
Do not.
Absolutely not. But yeah, this does not feel nearly as bad
Yeah,
as
you
I
did a good
expected.
job. Okay.
No, this feels
I'm gonna
actually
stop
really
it. Thank
good.
you.
Now my hands are just like super protected.
Yeah,
I know.
amazing.
We're good. Here's my thing, like if you like more natural products, you do you. Like I'm not
Right.
gonna judge anyone based off what they
Right.
use, but when people go out of their way to demonize something, that's when I start to have a problem because
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how much this actually impacts the
Right,
industry.
the industry. It's not just somebody says, I want a natural product, so I'm going to have a natural product. It's the way the brands fearmonger about this is more safe and effective. And then that trickles down into product development where other brands are like, okay, well, I'm not supposed
I
to
want
have this
this too.
ingredient because
Yeah.
I heard it was bad. So, hey, chemist, take this out. And there you're tying up the chemist's time and money and like R&D money just to do something that doesn't even make sense in the first place. But then it also eliminates the likelihood that brands are using, again, totally safe and effective ingredients that are easier to use, that are more stable in a formula.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, and then it gets to the actual ingredient suppliers who are now trying
yeah.
to make things that are just like, oh, here's our X alternative, here's our X alternative. And again,
And-
just making things that are like that brands want, but are almost always worse.
Yes,
Yes.
they're always worse.
Yeah.
And because the suppliers know this is what brands are looking for, jack the price up.
Always.
Oh yeah.
While they were making these, I was costing out all the raw materials that we used in each of the formulas.
Ooh.
Because,
final verdict.
Yes. So though I prefer Ava's, honestly the raw materials in yours cost about 1/2 to 2/3 what his costs. So
Wow.
I kind of thought that was interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Really?
because she's able to use like some emulsifiers and things that are a lot cheaper. A lot of the alternatives that they'll make for silicones or certain emulsifiers end up being a lot more expensive. You also end up sometimes, very often, having to use maybe more powerful
More
equipment.
energy.
The more energy going into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of just a problem. So when we're talking about products that should be accessible to all, I think don't
Chemical
let somebody
sunscreen.
tell you that a sunscreen with silicones in it is bad for you. It's not.
Yes.
Don't let somebody tell you that a sunscreen with parabens in it is bad for you. A sunscreen is a sunscreen, and the best one is one you're going to use.
100%.
Period.
Yeah, the difference between DIY sunscreen versus what we do in the lab.
Yeah. So what we did today was not a DIY sunscreen. I want to preface that.
Yeah.
As you could tell, our process today was a lot more complicated than throwing in some shea butter and some carrot seed oil and
some beef tallow.
And some beef tallow. And some uncoated zinc oxide from Whole Foods.
God, it gives me a headache.
We had a lot more sophisticated equipment. We had a lot more ingredients that could help suspend.
And we had a lot
Your-
more college degrees and grad school degrees
And
and
knowledge.
doctorate degrees
That is true.
that are necessary to know what is safe and effective when you're formulating. Like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
And it's not going to always be perfect, but like we now know that we could get testing done on it. But it's not the same as, oh my God, and when people make just like the straight up like waxes and oil phase where they don't add any water and it's not an emulsion and it's just the zinc oxide, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay,
Just
so
a
cool.
whipped butter.
So, what,
Bomb.
Yeah.
so as it cools, and that zinc oxide, which has a higher density than the weight of the oils around it,
Sinks to the bottom.
So you probably have a very lovely no white cast at the top because all of the zinc oxide is at the bottom. But guess what? You're also not getting
Any protection.
protection. Yeah.
Nothing. It's crazy. I did that for one of my videos. I tested a
Oh, did
DIY
you?
sunscreen. The SPF of it was 5. And they had promised 25, which is again a public health
That
issue.
is a public health
Yeah.
issue.
It's illegal. That's illegal, number 1. And number 2, it's just so unsafe and misleading. Like
Imagine
consumers
people
buy
have
that.
had- people that have had melanoma or people who have had family members with that and they're trying to be diligent with their protection because they want to avoid that for themselves. And then this brand is saying, oh, this is an SPF 25. And
like, oh, great.
they're like, oh, wow, this doesn't leave a white cast. Okay, I'm going to
This
keep
is
using this.
perfect.
I like this one. You're already typically not using enough sunscreen. You need to be using 3 fingers worth because it has to be, 2 milligrams per centimeter squared on
Correct.
skin.
Yeah.
And so that's like one thing that people aren't doing correctly, and that's okay. Like people don't know. That's why we try to educate. But then on top of that, give them an SPF 25, and it's actually only SPF 5. I mean,
That's bad.
it's bad.
Yes,
and,
it's
and,
bad.
and you're making money off of that because obviously
Yeah.
your SPF 5 is probably going to feel better than an SPF 25. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope it was educational and maybe a little entertaining. But tune in next week to see what I'm making and who I'm making it with.
Bye.
Bye. Amazing.
Woo!
No, honestly, I'm pretty sure when I decided I wanted to quit my job and start my own line, a big reason was because I was working on this sunscreen and they were wanting me to formulate for natural sunscreen. It had to be reverse emulsion, zinc oxide only, no silicones or anything. And I was getting so irritated because it's like, you don't want me to use these ingredients because you heard that someone thought that they might possibly be bad at a certain concentration that's not
Yeah.
even relevant to skincare. And it was so frustrating because my job was being made so much more difficult.
Yeah.
And the formula was way more expensive. It was harder to reach the budget, like the budgetary restrictions of the brand.
Right.
All just because of consumer perception. And that was when my irritation with fear-mongering really began.
Totally. And I feel like that's why we all make content, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
100%.
because we've had experiences like
Right.
these.
And when people think that we're getting unnecessarily sassy about certain things, I'm like, no, this is because it actually affects our job in a negative way, and not just that we're lazy, but it's like there's no reason behind it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely not. And people think that we're funded by big skincare,
Big
to,
pharma.
Big pharma is telling
Can
us.
y'all name one pharmaceutical company that did not supply any of the COVID vaccines?
Right, yeah, literally.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
No, it's
Big
just
Pharma.
but if I had big pharma dollars, you would not see a single brand deal on my page.
Literally, yeah, they're not in our email.
Educated Mess
Yeah.
would have launched 27 products by now if Big Pharma was paying me personally.
100%.
Yeah.
And then let's not even forget about the sunscreens
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's talk about
that have the
sunscreen.
complete wrong ingredient list on them.
Ooh, yes. So
Ooh.
this is something that I've been diving into more recently, is trying to figure out what's a sus sunscreen or a sunscreen. A sunscreen, because like we have seen today, using zinc oxide makes a white cast, right? And what a lot of brands like to do is they either like to add zinc oxide in a formulation at a fairly low percentage and add something called SPF boosters, which essentially are chemically similar to chemical UV filters,
some
except
of
they're
them are,
not
yeah.
regulated like that. And I feel like a lot of consumers don't know about that. And so they're like, it's
Yeah.
100% mineral, and then it's really
little bit on the
not.
side.
But that's something that we as chemists know and
Yeah.
kind of have to do, because it's either you get the white cast from the zinc oxide if you put it at a percentage that's actually going to be efficacious and will protect
Right.
the consumer, or you kind of need to compromise the formula and add some other things in there. How do you guys feel about SPF boosters?
If I was working in a formula, when I was working at a contract manufacturer and I worked on SPF, if they said all mineral filters, I was still using boosters. I mean, it's not that it didn't occur to me that they were structurally similar to chemical filters, but I'm more I'm formulating for the regulation.
Yeah.
What are you trying to tell me? And it wasn't that I felt like the brand. I don't feel like brands are being misleading when they say that. I actually feel like a lot of them don't realize.
Oh, yeah.
And that's that just goes back to that gap between the chemist and the consumer, or the chemist
Absolutely.
and the brand even. And a lot of brands that work with contract manufacturers, like when I was at a manufacturer as their chemist and director of R&D, I rarely worked with the brands directly.
Yeah.
To where if they said I want a mineral sunscreen, I make it. They don't run the marketing by me to say, can I say 100% mineral? Because at that point I would say, well, it does have some chemical boosters in it. But again, it's just all semantics to me because it's all just like silly wording that like, okay, it's a chemical booster, but zinc oxide is also
a chemical.
Like,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's just like, it's so weird the way it gets perceived, I think. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, because again, you have the brands who just want who want to have it all, but like you really can't have it all when it comes like, oh, if I want mineral, then they have to have this. So like I also don't mind the boosters, but I think that for when it's a problem for me is when you have someone who has like an allergy or something.
Oh, yeah.
Who
Exactly.
has like a salicylate allergy or something, and it's like, oh, but this has this other salicylate which isn't listed as a filter. So that to me is when it becomes like a real problem.
Yeah, it'll still be on the label, but yeah, I get
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Right.
But
some consumers wouldn't know.
exactly,
They're
and
just
some
looking
people-
for the chemical
exactly because some
filters.
might
Just
say
looking on the drug fact
they're
spot.
just looking at the active ingredients because that's probably what like their doctor will tell them versus like, okay, you
Right.
gotta look at all the ingredients in there. So that to me is when it becomes like a much bigger problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it comes down to just like, making mineral sunscreen, it's like, it's hard to make a decent formula without those
Absolutely.
boosters.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like, in a perfect world, if you want to make like an SPF 50, like, you've got to have, max out your zinc oxide, but then like, do you add titanium dioxide, which is much whiter
Yes.
than zinc oxide, vile. It's like, okay, what else can I do? Let's try these other kind of film formers and whatever. It's like, okay, I like a 40, and eventually it's like, okay, let me add in these boosters
Let me add the boosters in
because you have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
Absolutely.
And I was gonna say, I forgot.
Where I have the problem is the companies that market something as being like 100% mineral or whatever, and then demonizing chemical
That.
UV filters.
Yes.
That's when
Say we will never
That's
use
when-
chemical UV filters like avobenzone or octinoxate or octocrylene, when in reality they're using the SPF boosters that are very chemically similar.
That's okay. That's a good point. That goes back to what I was about to say too. Is like the reason I would use a chemical booster and a mineral SPF is because genuinely in my brain and based on what science has proven us, that chemical booster is not dangerous to skin. It's not dangerous to the environment. So like for me, I'm like, I'm not gonna leave it out just because. Well, I don't have to. It's not a chemical filter. It's a booster. But like Ava was saying, when a brand wants to like demonize an ingredient, if a brand is demonizing an ingredient, I want to see you prove why it's bad. I don't want you to just say silicone free. Really? Okay, why
Tell
is
me
that
what's
a
wrong
thing?
with
What's wrong with
silicones?
silicones then? And if you can't do that, then it's bullshit in my opinion. And so if you are demonizing chemical filters, but you have a chemical booster, okay, why are we picking like, if you're gonna come here with that energy on chemical filters, you need to come here with that energy on every fucking ingredient in your product.
Yes.
I don't know about you guys, but I have potential clients come to me all the time and say that they want to make a sunscreen.
Oh, same for me.
and that their
all
budget
the time.
is pretty small and that they want it to get it
$6.
done in like 3 months.
3 months.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about the feasibility of that?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like, I think that in general, people don't realize how long things take, but
Yeah.
there is nothing that takes more time than like sunscreen besides like other OTC drugs and like foundations and like color products in general, because that's a nightmare pain. But yeah, when it comes to sunscreen, because just like with the formulation process, it takes a very long time.
Right.
Just get a good formula base and it's like, okay, great, this is good. And then when you have to do all your stability testing, make sure that it's stable, it's not going to split.
The
You're
assay testing, too.
Exactly, doing all that, making sure that the assay testing is good and that you're maintaining that concentration of UV filters throughout the entire time of the stability testing. Then you actually have to get it SPF tested. And then if that test does not come back what you want it to, then you got to
You're
start
starting
back from
all
square
over.
one. And now that stability testing for like drugs takes 6 months. And so then if you go 6 months, it's now 6 months after you started doing your formula,
Yeah.
then your SPF test does not come back with what you want. You're
Just
back
start
at
all
square
over,
one.
square one.
So it's gonna be another 6 months, and then you
Yeah.
have to do it for each time that the SPF test does not come back what you want it to.
Yeah.
And this is assuming everything goes well. Like what I tell my clients is like, if you want a custom formula, minimum 2 years.
Oh, 2 years, yeah.
Minimum 2 years.
Yeah.
But but other than that, I tell them just like, listen, you need to work directly with the manufacturer or
Private
just
label.
or private label.
There's
just
no
like
shame in that game.
No.
yeah. 100%, because like it's like there's plenty of room on the market for all kinds of brands,
Yeah.
but like when it comes to sunscreen, especially because most people do not wear sunscreen every single day.
Yeah.
They don't
And,
use
like,
it the way they don't wear as much.
Exactly, and it's a big cost sink for a lot of brands for a product that's really that has like really strong seasonality to it.
Yeah.
So it's like you're gonna invest all this money, people aren't gonna be buying it as much. Is it really
Yeah.
worth it?
Right.
Just white label.
Just white. Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna tell you guys about the worst product I ever worked on. Ever. It was a SPF foundation. And so when we're going along with the processing, look, Julian was talking about, this gave me, I lost sleep over this. Not really, but it was the foundation came out, and this will happen with the color, especially with color cosmetics, but most batches in a manufacturer, there are gonna be some adjustments you have to do, whether it's pH or viscosity. With this specifically, there was a lot of color matching. But you don't want to just add the direct iron oxides in, because then they'll be chunky, right? The pigment colors. So you would typically, what we would do is blend them up and disperse them in a fine miller with into cyclopentasiloxane, because that was the main emollient in our sunscreen. So by the third or fourth color adjustment, now we're looking at our zinc levels are a lot lower than it was before, so it's not going to pass assay testing. It's not going to pass. So we got to add more zinc oxide back in, but guess what that does? That makes the whole foundation lighter.
More
so then you have to add more pigment to make up for that color.
There's that whack-a-mole every time.
Whack-a-mole, I swear. I think that the main goal of most of this educators and creators that work in product development and skincare and stuff, if we can just get people to let the experts do the science, whether that's the interpretation of studies, whether that is determining what's safe and effective.
Yeah.
If it could all be backed by science, that's great. I do not, if there was a study that came out tomorrow that said glycerin was widely dangerous.
I would
well,
quit.
yeah, but I'm like, if
that
it
is
said,
my ingredient.
I know.
I know. If that's getting demonized,
I know.
We're
Well,
no.
back it up.
Obviously, if it's getting demonized for any reason, I'm gonna be pissed. But I was gonna say, as every other chemist would probably feel, if there was something that came out that said this is actually really dangerous to your skin, it's causing this long term. We accept it if you can come with the receipts.
With the receipts.
Absolutely.
That's all. We want to see the receipts, and we want them to make sense, and we need them to make sense in the context of how the product is being applied to skin, what concentration is actually going to be in the product, how often you're actually applying it, routes of exposure. That's all we want to see. And 99% of the time that we are handed a study and you hear somebody saying this is going to cause cancer and
The receipts are not there.
it's when you inject 100% of it under the skin of a rodent, it kills the rat.
Yes.
All right, well, yeah. Also, don't feed your dog chocolate, but that doesn't mean I can't eat it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, oh
but
my
here's the
God.
thing, though, there are experts or doctors on social media that still demonize sunscreen, and that's a whole other issue too.
Yeah, and it's fine to prefer a mineral
Right.
sunscreen,
Absolutely.
a texture, whatever, or sensitivity, but don't say that chemical
It's
sunscreen
better.
is bad,
Yes.
or that mineral
That
sunscreen
there's
is better for
only
everybody.
option.
I mean,
Yeah.
That's
here's my
crazy.
thing. I use Korean sunscreen because I do not like the filters we have available in the U.S.
Preach.
But that doesn't mean that I think that the UV filters available in the U.S. are bad. It
No.
I don't like sunscreen. I don't like wearing it. So I'm going to choose the one that feels and smells and looks and performs
Yeah.
the least like us. It feels mostly a moisturizer,
Yeah.
I'll admit, I prefer the filters that are available in Korea. That doesn't mean the ones in America are bad.
No.
I remember just thinking, I would change careers if there was not a way that I could get out of ever making a foundation at school. I would have quit right then and there. OnlyFans, please. No, actually, cut that part out. Leave it in. Today, to kind of just show you guys some of the cost of formulating to natural. Well, I have a potato-shaped head, so let me just make sure my hair doesn't look funny. You don't have a latex allergy, do you?
No. Well, I mean, if I do, we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
And where's that hand cream? Oh. Okay, literally me. Just have a vat of hand cream and cheesecake. Amazing.
Love it.
Ooh.
Iconic. Oh,
Mineral only,
hold on,
silicone
you have
free.
food. You have seeds.
Cold cuts.
It's cold cuts. It's cold cuts.